animals, we crave the ability to be we. I know it's called me undies. We undies might have sounded differently.
Is it a disco now?
Yeah, it's the after party, so it's now we go with the flash.
My goal in life is to be a laptop sticker.
Me too.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.
It's a great honor, Mr. Jaffe. It's always nice to be with you.
I'm so happy to be with you. I'm honored.
Thanks for doing this, too. It's a real service to the community.
Thank you for doing this, Joseph, for doing Corona TV in general. And it's your gift to the universe, and it's appreciated.
Very human, and I like that.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane!
Well, hello, everybody. It is December 22nd, 2 days before I make it over the bar of the first 50 years of my life, and more on that soon. But today is a special day. Why? Because I get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, agility, and I actually get to be agile, which I will explain to you what I mean in just a moment. But first, hello to my mom who's watching. You're in for a treat. I think my mom is the epitome of agility, the ability to keep on moving, to duck, dodge, dive, dodge, and duck. I think those are the rules or the laws of dodgeball. My mom has very special abilities, but today is a very different kind of day. It's actually really not even the International Day of People with Disabilities. It's actually Abilities Day. First celebrated in 1999, Abilities Day honors and celebrates people with disabilities and their caregivers. Disabilities can be invisible or visible, can be minimal or severe, and can affect people at any age or place in life. But really, it is not about the disability. It is about the ability for them to transcend, to elevate, to demonstrate their incredible superpowers and how they've been able to conquer in their lives adversity. So we celebrate all of you today. And we celebrate Engelina Jaspers. She's a marketing executive and author, but she is the epitome of agile, because I reached out to her, 7 p.m. last night, 6 p.m. last night, 8 p.m. last night, and I said, we've had a slight change in plans. You don't know me, I don't know you, I'm paraphrasing, but how about coming on Corona TV? And she said, that sounds like a good idea. And here we are, a full show dedicated to her and dedicated to agility. And hard to believe we didn't even know each other, I guess, about 18 hours ago. But that shows, I mean, again, walking the talk, that is what it is all about at the end of the day. Well, I alluded to my birthday on December 24th. Two young and up-and-comers in marketing, Philip Kotler and Seth Godin, will be my guests, and I thank them very much for spending Christmas Eve with this little Christmas Eve baby. Let's do birthday, shall we? Sharon Levy, one of my twins. We've celebrated birthdays together, often in person. She's in South Africa. Happy birthday to you, Shubby. And of course, Lisa Stain as well. All of you guys are basically my twins. And on LinkedIn, David Gutierrez, John Garudi III. I never met the second or first. Aparna Roy, happy birthday to you. Well, the common theme today, no doubt, is this whole thread, this red thread of agility. And as Tom Morris says, I'd rather be agile than fragile. Very, very good point. And you don't want to put the F and R into agile either, right? Do you, Mr. Tom Morris? That is a good point. But today I want to talk about this concept of agility. And before I do, I just want to mention that there are like two things that I already love about my guest today. One, she says 2021 is the year for digital transformation and not 2020. I agree. And two is her sweet spot is all about agility. Now, in Built to Suck, I developed thinking around what I call the survival instinct. Whereas marketing is a muscle, survival is an instinct. You can craft it, you can sharpen it, you can hone it. But without it, you're a sitting duck or a lame duck, whatever the phrase. The survival instinct has two components to it: self-preservation and adaptation. The former is all about status quo, but the latter is all about evolution and change. So where do you think agility fits along this continuum? If you said adaptation, I would probably disagree. If you said self-preservation, well, that's an affirmative hell to the no. In my opinion, agility, if it sits anywhere, lives right in the middle. It's the perfect balance or equilibrium or bridge between the two components, but it's also not static per se. Rather, it is completely dynamic and fluid. It's actually consistently and constantly moving across the spectrum. And it is just that movement that is absolutely integral to survival, or better yet, thrival. From the shark to the hummingbird, constant movement is not an optional extra. It's life force itself. From the fast feet of Muhammad Ali to the ever-alert buck grazing in the fields, the ability to be in constant motion or flow sends out a strong signal to any lurking predator. Catch me if you can. This is how I look at agility. It's inextricably a part of the skill set required to make it big in this world, where we've learned, if we've learned anything, to expect the unexpected. I mean, I'm still waiting for Jupiter and Saturn actually to have a fender bender. It's coming. But hang on, expecting the unexpected but doing nothing about it, well, that's as satisfying and effective as the old hindsight is 2020 adage. If you want to be around in 2021 and beyond, then you have to. You're going to need to really sharpen the ability to execute and act on these impulses, instincts, or in the case of the real pros, the calculated scenarios of what ifs that actually come to pass, no matter how far-fetched or extreme. As the saying goes, there are those who make things happen, there are those who watch things happening, and then there are those who turn around and say, what happened? That would be 2020. Let's all make sure that history does not repeat itself in 2021. And the way that we can be in charge of that happening is, of course, to be agile. Well, before I bring on my guest, I just want to say, oh, look who's here. Aldo Gonzalez. He says, congratulations on having such a special guest today. Well, thank you. I better bring her on soon. But before I do that, I want to just pay a little tribute to Mr. Steve Garfield from stevegarfield.com. Now, you know what I love about this journey for me is that every day I learn something new. Every day I try something new. And sometimes it's not about me at all. It's about my guests. It's about the community. It's about the audience. So yesterday, Steve was watching the show. Josh Burnoff was on the show. And then he went and created a piece of video that he put onto Facebook. And of course, very astutely tagged me and tagged Josh. I'd like to show you the video and then comment briefly on it.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Garfield from stevegarfield.com, and I just watched Joseph Jaffe's Corona TV with his guest Josh Burnoff, and I thought I'd give you some Corona TV afterthoughts. One thing Josh Burnoff said was there are two types of writers, the planners and the pantsers. The planners plan out everything that they're going to do, and then once they have their plan, they write the book based on the plan. The pantsers are just seat of the pantsers, and they just write or dictate and have someone fix it later, fix the edits later, they edit it, whatever. So that reminded me of a story when I first learned programming, and I learned how to do flowcharting. I learned the Nasse-Schneiderman flowcharting technique, and you would draw out all the things that you wanted the program to do. So the teacher in our class would not let us start coding until we had our flowchart done. Same thing as the planner. So I'm more of a planner, less of a pantser. Second thing, when I wrote my book, Get Seen, my editor at Wiley was Shannon Vargo. And when I submitted one of my early first drafts, it had lots of interviews at the start, and then I had how-tos, how to do video after the interviews. And she said, why is all the good stuff after the interviews? So she switched it and put all the great how-tos at the front, and then the interesting interviews, which added value, at the back. She also read the first draft and she said, where are you? Where are you in this book? And I was like, what do you mean? This book isn't about me. And she said, yes, it is. It's your book. So then I added more personal stories and examples from my own video production. So once again, I'd like to thank Joseph Jaffe and his guest today, Josh Burnoff, for a great show. Thanks.
So Bob Farnham says, turn it up, which I guess meant the volume was a little bit low. Thank you for that feedback. I was just watching his video. I tell you why I decided to show that video today is because, in a way, Steve is innovating and creating a new segment on my show. The afterthought, or the after a thought, you know what I mean? An afterthought on the show. And, you know, earlier I'd actually posted this, which is trying to figure out a way to get my audience to get seen, to be on the show. I love this. I feel he's going to do more of that, and he's probably going to get seen and get noticed and get referenced and get credited on the show as well. It just reminds me, it takes me back to the good old days, the early days of blogging and podcasting, where you could really get noticed by a blogger or podcaster by being part of the conversation. And so that's ingenuity, that's creativity. That allows people to show me that they're watching and actually add value by keeping the conversation going. So good on you, Steve Garfield. Thank you for innovating and thank you for evolving, you know, the adaptation part of Corona TV. Well, enough of Steve Garfield. Now it's time to focus all of our effort on the wonderful Engelina Jaspers. Engelina Jaspers is a student and teacher of business and career agility. Her 30-year experience as a corporate executive leading company-wide transformation and building nimble marketing organizations comes through in her book, articles, and workshops. Engelina is the author of Marketing Flexology, How to Outsmart Change and Future-Proof Your Career. To find out where you fall on the agility continuum, take her free marketing agility assessment. I know that I did already, and I'm going to see if she can tell what my assessment was. So without further ado, let's bring her on. Engelina, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Joseph.
No, thank you. And I went on a little bit longer because in many respects, I think what Steve had done is a manifestation of agility as well, which is trying something new, experimenting, putting yourself out there, and you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I learned something too about the planners and the pantsers. I thought that was quite an interest. I made a note of that because I do talk about seat of your pants marketing, you know, versus thoughtful, planful marketing. So I thought that was an interesting. I'm going to have to read up on that or listen to that podcast from yesterday.
Well, you're going to have to tell me whether you're a planner or a pantser.
A planner.
Yeah, I am without, do I even need to say what I am? I am a pantser. My writing technique is actually what I call like organized chaos, which is I just write and it flows. And then sometimes it's chaotic where I'll be like take the word agile. I'll just decide, well, you know what? What if agile was an acronym? And then I would create the acronym for it. And I don't allow myself to overthink because I know that if I go back and go, well, why did you make A that? And why did you make G that? And why did you make I innovation? And why did you make L learning, right? And why did you make E and or what would E stand for? Entrepreneurship. How about that?
Yeah,
See,
that's good.
And that's the process. And suddenly I go back and I go, wait a second, this looks half good. But when I start to second guess and doubt myself and think, well, what if the E was something else? What if I'd taken 20 minutes more? That's when it all falls, you know, it all falls to pieces. And so I don't do that. That's my process as a pantser.
Very good. Well, to your point, it's balance, right? You need to have both. And I like that the thought of opportunity meets preparedness. So I do think to be a pantser, to be opportunistic, you have to have the framework in place in order to pivot and move, right? You can't just do it without any kind of process or system or plan or materials in advance.
And by the way, I mean, we're already getting lots of comments for you. Tom Morris says, a warm welcome from all the regulars here to Angelina. Thanks for the rapid response to be a guest. Doesn't it make you, so how did it make you feel? Did it make you feel exhilarated to actually go through this process so quickly? Or
it was fun. It was fun because you viewed my profile. I happened to be on LinkedIn. I viewed yours, and then you sent me a connection request and said, hey, what about this? I've been thinking about you, blah, blah, blah. I have an opening. So it was really exciting. And one of the things that I think for personal agility, and I talk about this and write about this, is saying yes. You know, there's a lot of comments and commentary out there about saying no, setting boundaries, saying no. And I'm just the opposite. I want to say yes more often. So when an opportunity comes and presents itself, you know, I'm the first to raise my hand and say, you know, not even thinking of the work or the time frame or other priorities. It's like, raise your hand and say yes, and amazing doors will open. You'll get to meet wonderful new people, see these comments that are coming in. You know, I think it's saying yes is a step in the right direction for agility.
It's such a great point. And, you know, as a parent, sometimes you have to train yourself to say no to a child. But as a business person, as an entrepreneur, even in life, it's that classic, you know, fire, ready, aim, right? Say yes, and then figure out how the hell you're going to get it done or how it's going to execute. But execute.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
All right. So Wendy is here, and she says, "Good morning, everyone." I guess it's morning where you are on the West Coast. But before we get into this meaty topic, and there are so many wonderful topics to discuss with you, I always like to find out a little bit about my guests. And I found out 3 very interesting fun facts about you, Engelina. The first one is that you are an immigrant. Can you believe that we actually were able to track down some of these? This was the swearing in ceremony. Isn't that just amazing?
That's amazing. I look a little older than 8 years old, but you know, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
How did we do it? But you actually said that, you know, that this is a big part of who you are, and yet you don't talk about it that often. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind, you know, in your in a way that is consistent and true to form, telling us about why this is such a significant part of your life.
Yeah, well, I think, like I said, I'm an immigrant. We immigrated from our whole family, mother and father and 3 kids in tow, immigrated from Europe, from Holland.
Yeah, I was going to say, hoe gaat het?
Very good. You speak Dutch?
Dank je wel, dank je wel.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah. I understand it a lot better. I mean, I was brought up with my parents when we immigrated. My mother was 35. My father was 41. And they did not know a word of English. And so think of, you know, the disadvantage you have. So I grew up, they would speak Dutch to us and we would answer back in English because, you know, we'd learn English by going to school. And I was 8 years old. I carried a green card until I was 8. And I think that whole experience, the immigrant experience, to your point, it's a very good one. You know, why don't I talk about it more? It's not really a badge. It's really who I am. And I think it's helped me with inclusion and diversity and seeing alternate points of view. I'm very much for an inclusive workforce, but I'm also very much for diversity of thought. It's not just diversity of gender and age and ethnicity, but it's diversity of thought. So I've really carried that through. There's a lot of stereotypes, as you probably know, that go with people who don't speak the language. But my parents, you know, very quickly, you know, took English as a second language courses. My father got his high school equivalency because neither one of them had been to high school when they immigrated. I mean, it's a very interesting background. And when I was born at home in a house, you know, with a midwife, you know, I mean, those whole experiences, I think, just kind of shape who I am. And I think it gives me a lot more empathy for diverse points of view, diverse thoughts, diverse people.
I do love the comment and on diversity. I also think about roots, and I think about anchors, and there's that old saying, never forget where you've come from. And I think as we have this conversation today about 2021, about agility, about how to keep moving and move forward, how important is it to still have that very strong connection to roots and to foundation, history, heritage, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You need roots. The best two gifts you can give your children are roots and wings. And I really believe that, roots to ground you and wings to carry you and give you the resilience and agility to move forward. And I think that's the difference between stability and agility, right? So which end of the spectrum, is it you want to, even when you're building an organization or a structure or a team, you want to give them stability, because or otherwise everything's chaos and everything's seat of your pants marketing, speaking of in the marketing world. But you want to give them agility so that they can turn on a dime and pivot when there's a bad financial quarter, or there's a downturn, or there's a management change, or a change in model, or, things of that, or in the market, or new competitor enters. You want them to be able to, so I like that stability, agility, in which end of the spectrum. And it always comes down to balance, right? You need the roots, but you need to have the wings in order to take advantage and to go to new heights. You can't stand still. You said that in your opening comments about the status quo and standing still. You'll get run over. There's no movement. Being fluid and dynamic are the name of the game, for sure.
I've decided I'm going to do a George Costanza, which is I'm going to end the show at the high, because I don't think we can top what you just did. So thank you for coming on the show, as Chuck Norris would say.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm not really doing that, but that's how good that statement was. My God, stability and agility, that balance, it's what I was grappling with as well in that soliloquy, which is, where does agility fit between self-preservation and adaptation? It fits in the middle, but it's actually not static at all. So that was awesome. And that's why, it's funny, the little fun facts that I put together was all about learning about my guest, but also discovering things that might not have come across in the show. Well, here's something else. One more ability of yours is you were part of a launch team, Kodak's foray into digital and digital photography. So you must have worked with Mr. Jeffrey Hazlett back in the day, I would assume.
He wasn't there yet.
He hadn't even come yet.
No, he hadn't even come yet. So this is, I don't want to date myself, but no, it's not good to date yourself, obviously. But, no, this was before his time there. But this is back in, the late 70s when Kodak, it was really fast. I got my start at Kodak, Eastman Kodak Company. That's where I got my marketing chops. They were really very, very disciplined about business to consumer, B2C and B2B. And so I really learned a lot about the basics, the foundation, the stability, but they also had some blinders on, as you can imagine. But I was a PR professional, and my role was trade press. We had a different group that was responsible for the business press, the Wall Street Journals, New York Times, etc. But I was trade press, and my audience was everything from graphic designers, graphic arts field, to printing and publishing. And in the case of the digital photography, we had this camera that was ready to be launched, and it was a trade press story. And I remember being called into the office by our Dave Metz, who's passed away, and he was the head of corporate communications at the time. And he sat me down, and I was a 20-something-year-old, PR puke, just starting my career, doing the trade press. I had 50 photojournalists came in to hear the story about the new digital camera that Kodak was launching. And I remember him sitting me down and saying, "Don't forget," he said, "this is a trade press story. It's not a business press story." And he said, "Don't forget who pays the bills around here." Of course, meaning that it was the consumer side of the business that paid the bills around here. The film side of the business, at that time, Kodak was the fourth most valuable brand. They had 90% market share. They were the Fortune 20 company. You know, they could go, right? I mean, it was the Kodak moments, but they had a lot of internal tug of wars. So we had the press conference. I mean, obviously the digital camera that was launched was, I think it was $20,000. It took a long time to process, but it was just a wonderful product. And the next day, it became a business press story. The front page, you know, of the paper said, Kodak enters digital photography. And I thought, oh my God, my career is ruined at such a young age. You know, he told me to keep it as a trade press story, but it was just so phenomenal. But so they had the technology, and a lot of people think that Kodak, you know, it was their tech, they missed the technology curve. They had the technology. It was just this success breeds complacency, breeds status quo. It was, and they turned a blind eye. I remember the mantra was 50% of the world has yet to take their first photograph. There's plenty of market share out there.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, when they took their first photograph, it wasn't on silver halide, you know, 32 layers of chemical on a piece of film substrate, you know, it was on digital. So they leapfrogged, and they hadn't seen that coming. So it's a sad story, because they're such a wonderful, wonderful, proud heritage and founding, and they were a great company. But anyway, that's my story.
I put up the article, and we'll go back to that in just a moment, because there are some, I think, incredible data points that I read in that article. But you said something so interesting. You said success breeds complacency. Now, I would say people out there, they probably, when they think about the Kodak story, I would say 50% of people are shocked to learn that Kodak was actually the first mover, pretty much the first mover into digital. And then, of course, that ... opens up the question, so how did they fail? What I think you just did is you introduced a new thought, or a new insight, which is they were actually successful, or felt successful in doing so, but let it slip. So where in that continuum was agility, or the lack thereof? Were they back in the day an agile company? Because one of the things that I realized is the ability to move quickly and move fast, change course, change direction, is inversely related or connected to size. The bigger you are, the harder you fall, because the slower you move. So I would love to get your thoughts on agility and Kodak. Were they oil and water, or were they once bedfellows?
No, that's good. And you mentioned the size and scope and scale. I know you talk about that as a key tenet of your book, Joseph, Built to Suck, right? That's kind of a key. So this whole topic is very near and dear to your heart as well, I can tell. Sure. So I didn't come up with the success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. That was actually Andy Grove. He was the co-founder, as you know, of Intel. He was an immigrant as well. You're from Hungary, I believe. And he wrote a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. Do you remember that? This is quite a while ago.
Right.
But his whole model was complacency. Success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. Only the paranoid survive. So he said, you got to be paranoid every day. So relating that back to the Kodak story, I do think they had a century of success, which did lead to complacency, I would say. They had a lack of organizational agility. And then they had a lot of antibodies within the organization that would, against anything that might compete with film. They had a brilliant B2B business that I supported. I started out, selling Kodak copiers and printers, and things of that nature, big scale. They had a very successful business, but it was always, remember who pays the bills around here. So it's internal, and most companies collapse internally, right? Governments, companies, teams, marriages, they all fail internal collapse more so than external collapse. So I do think it was success that bred complacency. I mean, how can you go wrong? 100 years, you were successful for 100 years. You're top of the field, king of the hill, kicking down.
Well, he has a question that it's almost rhetorical. It's so obvious, which is, can you be complacent and agile at the same time?
So I think you can. I don't think it's size and scope and scale. I think those are, culprits, definitely. But I do think a large company can be agile. But because don't forget, agile organizations start with agile people. So it's the people in those organizations. And if you reward risk taking, if you have processes, lightweight processes in place that allow you to pivot, if you reward rapid decision making, all those things, that's why big companies have all these skunk works, because they're trying to build this entrepreneurial and innovative spirit within a company. But and even one of those fun facts that was in that document that you said, it was what was it? It was kind of interesting, I thought.
Well, I selected a few that I really
Good.
wanted you to touch on. So here are the three. The first one is most companies want to be more agile, but 59% don't have the cultural attributes, ranging from willingness to share knowledge to quick decision making, that are fundamental to agility. So this, to me, opened up the thought, the important one about culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that was a study done by
I think that was Gallup.
Was that Gallup? Okay,
Yeah.
That was a study done by them. And I do think it gets back to culture. And that's where I was saying there's been articles written in the Harvard Business Review and others about the cultural attributes that contribute to, but you have to have, that contribute to agility, rapid decision making. And I think it also, there's such an obsession with the bottom line and with profit and revenue. And I know that's important as a public company. I'm not foolish on that, but I think that sometimes, the quarterly pressure of a public company creates abnormal behavior, that you have to pull out all the stops to make the numbers rather than really doing the right thing from a customer standpoint. And so, that's why you have companies, that take their, like Dell, that was public, took it private, that want to take their companies. You hear Tesla, Elon Musk wants to take his company. Did he take his company private again? He went public because they needed to fund themselves for growth and expansion and size and scale. I think so. I think he took one of his companies. It wasn't Tesla, was it SpaceX? But he took one of his companies. He said it's the hassle of having a public company and answering to shareholders. Again, that's blasphemy, I'm sure. But just the pressure of that, you can't do. And, 90 days, is not enough time to really to do the right thing for a customer sometimes.
Angelina, it seems that going back to that question about can you be agile and complacent at the same time, it seems that agility can actually breed arrogance, maybe, and overconfidence, especially if you if a company believes and its people believe that they are superior, fast moving, that is actually one of their strengths. It's one of those maybe classic examples of where the strength becomes a weakness if it is over indexed upon, or if it becomes too dominant. And I think maybe, when you bring up Elon Musk, I'm not certainly, saying that Tesla is in trouble at all, but he's a very arrogant man and a very different man. And they're a company that moved pretty quickly as well. And so I just wonder whether agility without that cultural grounding or foundation can lead to that, maybe not complacency, but that overconfidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that you step into a mindset of status quo or too big to fail, that whole mindset, those are danger signs. So that's why I like the only the paranoid survive comment by Andy Grove, because you have to be constantly on your toes, constantly adapting and changing. If you think that you've got the winning formula, even Amazon, it's almost like, can they fail? They're just Apple. You think of all these companies that are just skyrocketing. If they become too complacent, even in their agility, it's the same as becoming too complacent in their stability. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so here's another one that I thought was interesting, and this is a Gartner stat. Nearly 3 in 4 companies plan to shift some of their previously on-site employees to permanent remote work post COVID-19, a reflection of the lasting impact of the current pandemic. So that to me is I kind of feel like it's intuitive, but that's just seeing it there, it feels quite a big statement.
Yeah, I think so too. And what took them so long? That's
Yeah.
why, there's a saying that says never waste a good crisis, because in 2020 was definitely a crisis, or at least a lot of change and uncertainty and a lot of pain and anguish for a lot of people. But without that 2020, you wouldn't have people embracing remote working. You wouldn't have all the investment companies are making in digital technology for their workers. Why? What took them? What took a pandemic? Why did it take a pandemic to get us to this stage?
Can you answer that? Because it's such a brilliant question. Why did it take them so long?
I think it's the call to action. I think that people have a tendency to fall into status quo. To your point, success, status quo, we're doing things that are working. Why disrupt? Why reinvent the wheel if it doesn't need reinvention? And then all of a sudden, when your world is shaken, you say, I got to do something different. And you start taking all those alternate inputs that people have been saying for years. And so that's why you never want to waste a good crisis, because some of the ideas that you may have presented to your boss or to the leadership team now all of a sudden are gaining traction because they're looking for a good idea. They're looking for a way out of this crisis. And, some executives manufacture their own crisis. I've had that experience over the years too, because they know that until there's a crisis, there's no change. So it's the impetus for change, or the call to action for change.
How do you do that? Give me an example of manufacturing a crisis. And by the way, Andy Grove famously fired himself. I mean, that's maybe an example. But what is an example of manufacturing a crisis in order to create that catalyst for change?
Well, let's say a new competitor enters the market, and I'm just making it hypothetical. I've seen a lot of different examples, but, and it would be very easy for someone in business planning or research, to build the business case to take to the executives on why this is a looming threat to our company, our team, our industry, and we need to act now to forestall it. So that would be manufacturing a crisis, right? It'd be, holy shamoly, this competitor's entering, they've got this wherewithal, we've got to react to it. Now, it could be legitimate, but sometimes it's a little bit more fabricated, or created. We thrive in chaos and crisis. There never waste a good crisis. I'm seeing That's a good one from Stephen Rubin. We've learned to react. The hardest thing to do is act, right? Instead of reacting to a situation.
Yeah,
and when you're in a crisis, you're forced to act.
And that's the execution point as well. There is a concept called the 10th man principle, and it's almost about being completely contrarian and contradictory. So whenever there is consensus, that's probably another bad C, right? We've spoken about confidence or overconfidence, complacency. But whenever there is too much consensus, everybody just agreeing with one another, there is the ability to almost contradict and say, well, what if you're all wrong? Or what if something else happens? It's a giant what if. It's a different kind of what if. It's not what if, let's dream. If we can dream it, we can do it. It's a what if that says, what if all of this just goes to hell in a handbasket? I don't know, from a global pandemic or something like that.
Yeah. And how do you do that as the 10th man? I was not aware of that principle without being perceived as a rabble rouser, as a troublemaker, because a lot of times it's like, oh, and so I think there's one of the stats in there too, that half of American workers feel pressured to conform and to toe the line within their companies. I mean, that's a problem. And that gets back to what you said earlier about cultural attributes. If you are supposed to be towing the line and just getting along and don't rabble rouse, don't rock the boat, don't question authority. Those are cultural attributes in my view. So you have to instill that as a value where you appreciate and encourage healthy debate, perhaps.
Well, that's why I loved the comment you made about culture at the beginning. There's one more stat that I wanted to just share, because you said agile corporations have agile people in them, and this is from the source here is Everyday Health and Ohio State University. The majority of Americans overestimate their own resilience. 83% think they have high levels of mental and emotional resilience, yet only 57% score as resilient. So talk a little bit about this. Has COVID exposed this gap or this disconnect?
From what I see, yes, I think it has. You see there's a lot of winners and losers. I hate to say that, but the companies and individuals and teams, you're seeing that now with some of the layoffs that are happening, some of the small businesses that are closing. They thought they were resilient. They thought they had it all figured out. And all of a sudden, when things all went digital or online, they realized that they had some gaping holes where all their employees couldn't come into the office, when they didn't even know who their customers were. The biggest thing is, how do you reach customers? When you don't have their home mailing address, you always had their work addresses. But all of a sudden they're working from home. So if you wanted to send something to someone working from home, you're really in the dark, right? In many cases. So there's a whole paradigm shift. So yeah, I do think people overestimate how resilient they are until they're faced with, but other people, rise to the challenge. So I've seen a little bit of both. And that's where I get back to the opportunity meets preparedness. If you were prepared for both an online with an online presence, an online profile, and online, you're a perfect example of that, Joseph. How you've been able to shift your whole business model, your whole offering, to an online version very quickly during the pandemic. And others are saying, "Oh, woe is me." So you probably have a great story to tell in this area.
And but I didn't even think that, that was the whole thing. It wasn't that I wasn't strategic. It was the fact that, in fact, I was very strategic about not wanting to be the world's greatest virtual speaker, because I don't care for that. I like human contact. But for me, it was just about instinct and gut. Again, it was being a pantser versus a planner that actually fueled me without even realizing it. But I want to go back to something that you said. That you said opportunity meets preparedness, and that is your definition of agility. But it's actually also a definition. It's my definition. In fact, it is a classic definition of luck. Luck is what happens when preparedness meets opportunity. And then that just started kind of making my head hurt, because wait a second, now we're comparing luck with agility. And that's interesting to me.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and you're right. People have attributed it to luck. I don't think luck and agility. I think agility requires a lot of preparedness. The famous Oreo story. Do you remember the Oreo moment during Super Bowl? Which Super Bowl was it? 47. This is back 7 years ago.
Dunk in the dark. You can dunk in the dark with a power failure.
Yes. And the lights went off at the Superdome in New Orleans for 43 minutes. No football, no information. Everybody said, "Oh my God." And Oreo, and I know you worked for Engelina, so you probably know a lot about this, but Oreo is able to turn around in a tweet that said, "No power, no problem. You can still dunk in the dark."
Right.
And it went viral. And it was like the most, and people said, "What a stroke of brilliance. What a stroke of luck." And the woman there, and I love her title, Lisa Mann was was there at the time. I don't know her, but she was a VP of cookies. How do you like that? What a title. I want a title like that. I always had VP of marketing effectiveness. I want to be a VP of cookies. That sounds a lot more fun. But anyway, she said it was not a stroke of brilliance. Yes, it was brilliant execution. That tweet was 2 years in the making. And it's because preparedness met opportunity. They had the processes, the systems, the approval process. They had the right people together in the right room, from the lawyers to the social media to the agency to the marketing people to the product people. They had the photography. They had the stock images. They had all this stuff ready. So when this opportunity hit, they were able to turn on a dime, and within minutes after the power went out, they did their famous tweet. So that to me is...
I'm so glad you brought back that and also spoke about it in context of agility. By the way, I have good news for you. Not only can I make your dream come true, but I've actually given you a promotion. So you are now the SVP of cookies. So,
I love it. Oh, wow.
You should change, this has been ordained on Corona TV. You can change your LinkedIn profile. You are the SVP. You could be an EVP as well if you want.
Well, I'll baby steps, right? Baby steps. So thank you. What an honor. SVP. I mean, isn't that a cool title?
Well, I mean, Lisa Mann might take, she might take issue with that, but she's not here to defend herself. So
nope.
it's all good.
She gave up that spot, but.
So one of the things that we were discussing, and I'm going to give you, I will set up the little segue for it. There is the saying that change happens when the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. So why didn't it happen sooner? Why didn't we move to a remote model sooner? Well, something else that's certainly on your mind is the fact that digital transformation, you refer to it as a 2021 initiative. And I loved it so much and loved you for this because, 2020 was not the year of digital transformation. It was the year of digital catch-up, right? Digital catch-up, worst case scenario, digital acceleration, best case scenario, but not transformation. So I wonder if you could talk to not only why you believe 2021 is the year, as opposed to 2020, but also to the point of this article, why digital transformation is in fact a never-ending process.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And this isn't my article, but I posted it because I thought it was very spot on. But to your point, Joseph, 2020 was playing digital catch-up. It was like, where have you been? Why haven't you equipped your employees to work from home? Why did you insist no one could be remote? Why did you value physical presence more so than remote? Why didn't you learn how to do podcasts? Why weren't you doing online virtual events? Why were you still relying on big scale virtual events? So I think a lot of that was out of necessity. People were forced into a new reality or die, right? Flex or die. I like to say, right? You either do it or you're nowhere, you're silent. So they had to quickly play catch up. But I think now that the systems are in place, people are adapting. They're learning, especially workers at home, they're learning the technologies. Remember the first Zoom meetings we all had, and now how much more adept and competent we are with the new technology tools. People have better headsets. They're just more equipped to work remote. They figured out the work-life balance situation a little bit better, so they're able to multitask, I think, and balance. And employees seem to be accepting of the new model. So I think that is part of. But I think 2021, to that statistic that you said, and we're not out of the woods yet, as you know, and people never thought this was going to linger as much as it did. But I mean, we're still in this pandemic for another half year, and then the liability on companies, if they're going to be held accountable, if their employees come back to the office too soon and they're going to be sued by their employees for catching a disease and, and all that kind of stuff, that pressure. So I think 2021 is where people are institutionalizing it. So instead of putting the Band-Aid on it and saying, we're going to give all employees, what did they do at the companies I was supporting during the pandemic? They were giving employees $500 to buy, a new chair, an office desk, things you might need, a microphone, things you might need to do remote working. I think you're going to see that scale, and more people are going to say, hey, this is working. You already saw many companies saying we're declaring work from home forever as an option. So
I love what you said, this idea of institutionalizing, but really implicit in all of that is a very, very important insight, which is we're not going back to the old way. That ship has absolutely sailed. And today, your quote, every episode, I find a quote for my guest, which I think goes back. It almost makes us full circle with respect to even the thesis behind Built to Suck. Strength without agility is a mere mass. I love it. You're just a tub of lard. If you're strong, if you're big and ugly and strong, but you can't move quickly. Sorry, Goliath. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder what the opposite is, right? What is agility without strength? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. Maybe you can help me complete that. But that statement was actually from Fernando Antonio Nogueira Pessoa, who was a Portuguese poet, writer, literary critic, translator, publisher, and of course, Tom Morris would agree, philosopher as well. So that just shows you it's an and, right, Engelina? You can't be David or Goliath. You have to kind of be both.
And nimble and agile, resilient, you can't stand still. Right? You have to be both. And even in the Davids or the Goliaths, I guess it is, you have to have little Davids in there in the Goliaths in order to move, your arms, your legs, at least part of your body, even if you do have the scale and scope and size working against you. There's pockets of agility that you can create. And then again, getting back to the culture.
I love that. But although for me, I see this image of Goliath being actually controlled through pulleys and strings in their little nerve center of all the little Davids, kind of like a puppet master. But that's just me. Maybe that's a bad image. I don't know. That's just what I was thinking of. Engelina, there's one more thing that we can discuss today. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours upon hours, but I love the thread of corporate culture, people drilling all the way down. But there's one final piece of the puzzle, and that is this idea of learning and being a constant learner. And I just thought that was what a brilliant statement to kind of bring this whole thing home. In fact, I have one more data point for you. Being learning agile is a key predictor of success, and it is above intelligence, education, or even leadership. But only 15% of executives possess the skill. So define for me, what is it to be learning agile?
Yeah. So there was a study done by Microsoft. It's a LinkedIn study of 600 senior marketing participants, and they asked what are the soft skills and what are the hard skills that are needed, and what are the soft skills that are needed in today's workforce. And of course, you have the hard skills of SEO and data analysis and copywriting, behavioral analysis, automation. Those were the ones. But the soft skills, the creativity, humility, empathy, adaptability, and transparency came out higher. And just as important. And I think people in this adapt or die world are realizing, business leaders are realizing for once, that the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills. So ability can only take you so far, but then the agility is going to make you successful. And I think the key to that is lifelong learning. So I kind of backed into that story with soft skills and hard skills. I think we've placed so much emphasis on hard skills in the past that these soft skills like adaptability and lifelong learning, and of course, companies aren't spending as much money on lifelong learning as they have in the past. I like to think of myself as a student and a teacher of business and career agility, because I'm always learning, and I love lifelong learning, and I love learning new things and talking to new people and acquiring new skills. And I think that's going to be the agility part. It's ability will get your foot in the door, but the agility is what's going to really keep your foot in the door and have you thrive in your career.
What a great continuum from stability to ability to agility. By the way, Tom Morris took a stab at it. He said, agility without strength is a twisting wisp of smoke. So there you go. From being a tub of lard. By the way, wait a second, hang on a second. Think about this. Think about the three states, right? You have gas, you have liquid, and you have solid, right? So you have the mass, right, of being strength without agility. You have the gas or the air of being agile without strong. And if you have both, the David and Goliath, therefore you are liquid. And that is this idea of fluidity, movement, this dynamism of never standing still. How about that?
I like that. Gas, liquid, and solid. I think there's something there. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
I have to tell you, I knew coming into this that I was just going to absolutely geek out and have the best conversation with you, and you have not disappointed.
Thank you.
But we are almost at the top of the hour, and there is a lot to tell you about Engelina. So much more. First of all, she wrote a book called Marketing Flexology. By the way, I love the concept of flexology. That's also very, very meaty. The book is called Marketing Flexology: How to Outsmart Change and Future-Proof Your Career. I would immediately, I would challenge, I would say, wait a second, can you outsmart change? And is it even possible to ever future-proof your career? Engelina, you would tell me yes, right?
I would tell you yes. And there's a proven framework, tried and true framework in the book to get you to that stage. Now, that doesn't mean you'll never get laid off, but it does increase your odds and your chances. Yes.
Well, one might even argue sometimes getting laid off is a good thing. But I have posted a link that you can buy this book in the chat below in your comment thread. And Wendy says she can't wait to read.
Thank you.
So there you go. That is not all. That is not all. But wait, there's more. There's actually a free guide on how to increase your personal agility. And all you have to do is go to MailChimp, right? MailChai, as in Chicago.mp/marketingflexology/agility-guide. Did I include a link to that? Yes, I did. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in as well. But wait, tell us about the guide while I'm posting this into the comments.
Well, this guide is interesting because people would say, well, how do I develop more personal agility? I talked about the one, raising your hand and saying yes. And I talk about 9 superpowers or super moves. And one of it is the power of yes, the power of association, the power of scale, which I know we touched upon a little bit, but there is power in scale. If you can get something agile and then scale it, you can make a big impact. And the power of outsourcing. I talk a lot about different skills and attributes that you can develop, and you don't have to do all 9 at once. You know, you can adopt one, get good at it, and adopt another one. The power of lifelong learning. So I have 9 of them in the free guide.
But wait, there's more. There is more. There is also an assessment. So, and it's a free assessment. You can take the free marketing agility assessment. And as always, you don't actually have to type in that URL, or you could just pause the video afterwards, or you could just click on this link that I just posted below as well for you. But wait, there's more. I went and actually took the test. Did you know that I took the test yet? Have you seen?
No, I have not. I have my cell phone in the other room, so I've turned off my notifications, so I have not. But I bet you anything you're a cheetah. Not a cheater, a cheetah.
Should I show you what I am?
Yeah.
Ta-da!
I knew it.
How about that?
The epitome of
I'm
agility.
a cheating cheetah.
Yeah, no, not a cheating cheetah. Yeah, that excellent. Good for you. Good for you. It's kind of a fun quiz, you know, an assessment, a quiz, but it gets people thinking about, and in the free guide, the agility guide, it's included as a giveaway, you know, for taking, as a thank you for taking the assessment. So thank you for doing that.
It was absolutely fun. I enjoyed it as well, and you were spot on. You were spot on.
Oh, I knew it. Yeah, with those dogs running through those hurdles behind you, you had to be a cheater.
I'm not sure if the dogs were chasing the cats or the cats were chasing the dogs. Angelina, what an absolute surprise, unexpected pleasure to meet you. It's amazing. This is the gift of 2020 for me, because these things were just not possible months or even, you know, last year. And it probably opens up the Corona question for you, which is, what is the one silver lining, if any, that you will take away from 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is about customer centricity. I think it is about real authentic dialogues with customers. I think so much of marketing is you know, MarTech, you know, all about MarTech, right? And so I think too many marketers for too long have been talking to consumers and customers, real people, behind computer algorithms and not really getting out. So even though getting up close and personal, so even though we're not allowed to get up close and personal any longer, I think we've paused all the automation and really have had more authentic dialogues with our customers. So to me, it's the return to customer focus, which is the fundamental of all good marketing.
Tom says he thinks he'd end up being the tortoise, but this week, actually, I did talk about be the tortoise, as in slow and steady wins the race. But you can be a fast tortoise, and at the end of the day, the important thing is to win the race. So whether you're a cheetah or a tortoise, each has its place in this brave new world.
It does. It does. And it's an elephant in my assessment. It's an elephant. So if a tortoise would be the elephant. So there's 4 different categories that you'd fall into. But I'm sure that he wouldn't be a tortoise.
If there is an elephant in the room, his name is Tom. This has been an absolute pleasure meeting you, hanging out with the SVP of Cookies, guest number 169 in this adventure that is Corona TV. It is not done yet today because Engelina and myself and our regulars will be hanging out in the Zoom after show. You just have to go to bit.ly/Corona TV after show. Lots of comments about whether we will or won't get back to work. I'm sure people are going to want to continue to pick your brain. But if you want to continue to stay connected with Engelina, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. You can find out more about her practice, her book at marketingflexology.com. Of course, you can buy the book. You can get the free guide, those 9 superpowers. You can take the assessment and find out if you are an elephant or a cheating cheetah, just like me. And of course, you can follow her and her muses and her insights and her commentary on the Twitter. I think that is it. Unless you anything else you want to add, the floor is yours.
No, I so appreciate this, Joseph. What a wonderful conversation. What a wonderful opportunity. And I appreciate you. So thank you so much for all you're doing.
I appreciate you too. And now for real, you can hear from Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
I'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at CoronaTV.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.